Welcome to Tone Talks. How's everybody doing today? This is Attorney Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. I wanted to have a discussion today, a very important discussion to slow things down, go back a few years, and really talk about the way that Black politics, in my view, was attacked through myself, and Yvette Carnell on our channels. And when I say Black politics, I don't think that I can tell you enough of how things were before we ignited a discussion around being an American descendant of slavery and disaggregation, and how I started bringing in a conversation around the wealth data, because I believe the most important point of disaggregation isn't so much just the narrative around lineage. It's also because they don't want to give you the information about your situation in your life. When I say they, I mean the powers that be, the government. Structurally, they cannot tell American descendants of slavery that they are collapsed. So they have melded in a whole ball called black. And in that black ball, what has happened is you include biracials, which infuses white capital in there. And then you include Black immigrants, where you're infusing elite, often people that might even have been oppressive where they're coming from, into a group that was enslaved in this country. Fundamentally, what happened was me and Yvette Carnell brought that to the forefront of this country. And I'm not guessing when I say we did, because it was on the cover of the New York Times. In addition, there is no California reparations without my show. I'm not guessing. The intern watches my show, takes it to the hill. I end up testifying as a lead expert. They don't even want to cover it. I have 200 people. Normally for a California bill, around 3 or 4 people call. There was another bill on actually the on that day, and 3 people called. 200 people called because of my show and Yvette's show. So this is not about ego. It's more about politics, because what they did is they put a silencer on the national discussion of you existing. Now, on YouTube, what happens is that you guys watch food channels and watch sports channels. All of that doesn't matter. You don't exist without this discussion. And and when I say this discussion, I'm going to get into specifics about it, and specifics about how we know that the top of America attacked the American descendant of slavery movement, and how no one really understands, because there's no reaction, and there was no reaction. It'll be really hard for you to create family going forward. Unequivocally clear, I showed you in the last 2 shows how the data has jumped up. They don't want me telling you this. And I keep saying they, I'm saying the most powerful people in America. How do we know that? Because Harvard does a paper about us, then has to retract it, talking about COVID, not talking about COVID to Black people, when I was the first person to talk about COVID with Black folk. Everybody's in the chat. Please support the channel, tonetalks.net. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to get right into the discussion. 310-388-3499. What am I talking about? So Google finally admitted that they're going to bring back the accounts they banned, because the Biden administration was telling them to act. I guess in this case, to ban. But I don't believe it stopped at banning. That's just what they admitted. But that this went to throttling channels, suppressing subscription, keeping views low. Many of my people, I've never mentioned this on my channel. You can ask anyone who watches. Many of my people report they don't even get noticed when the channel goes live. I've been stuck at 86,000 or so subscribers for years. Fundamentally, they have decided that you cannot exist and America goes forward. Many of the other channels have lived on the backdrop of this discussion of wealth that's happening on this particular channel. But let's get right into what is happening. Google to bring back accounts banned at Biden's admin's insistence. Google told House lawmakers Tuesday that it would reinstate YouTube accounts that the Biden administration pressed them to remove over content related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Alphabet Chief's Counsel Daniel Donovan, and I'll have the full letter later that they put out, and let's read that to you, told members of the House Judiciary Committee that the 46th administration created a political atmosphere that sought to influence the actions of platforms based on their concerns regarding misinformation. So to get this, I'm gonna skip forward to come back. Harvard is basically pushed by MoveOn. MoveOn is a Democratic progressive lobby group of sorts. They are pushed by MoveOn to put out a paper after we are on the cover of the New York Times. Who is we? I'm talking about myself and Yvette Carnell. That's ABC News. It wasn't just it was national news. We have no billionaires behind us. I've never received a check. Essentially, they don't know what to do with this kind of movement. This was supposed to grow into your next civil rights. They decided you don't exist and said we're not going to have no more civil rights for ADOS. You got to be here and eat, and you figure that shit out. You wonder why you drive an Uber. Okay. We didn't do no politics. So we come back to controversial group ADOS divides Black Americans and fight for economic equality. This ain't the griot. No disrespect. This ain't News One. This ain't even CNN. This is ABC News. National. Myself and Yvette Carnell with Cornell West. Every interview that we got had a sentiment of, why the fuck are you guys here? In my view. The different reporters, they didn't know. They didn't even know what the fuck they was reporting on most times. They didn't understand that without this group, there is no movement forward because you don't exist. Black don't make you exist. We are post that. There's too many groups in that. They do it for every other group. When they talk about Cubans, they talk about Cubans. When they talk about Mexicans, they talk about Mexicans. You need to be recognized to get data to show that you're collapsed, but we don't want to show you that you collapse. Okay. Here we go. So me and Yvette sacrifice ourselves and our channels. I'm a lawyer. I don't have to do this. We sacrifice ourselves in our channels to basically allow for you to finally see things like the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances. What am I talking about? Nobody in America, definitely nobody in these goddamn YouTube channels, is telling you the state of Black wealth by the survey from the Federal Reserve. So we get to the New York Times. Then all of a sudden, you ain't asked the question why we disappeared. I want to talk today because I'm talking about Biden and this YouTube suppression, but I'm also talking about the political atmosphere that was built around misinformation when, in specific case of ADOS, the paper from Harvard that was funded in large part by MoveOn, the liberal democratic lobby group, MoveOn, was all about misinformation. So we got misinformation. We'll tie it to the Biden administration through Karine Jean-Pierre, who worked at MoveOn before she came to the Biden administration. And we have them retracting this paper. And all of this happens around the same time. And the base of the ADOS movement comes out of YouTube, and we can't grow our channels. All of a sudden, we can't get no views. 310-388-3499. I'm here to talk today. I'm here to explain to you guys that you do not exist politically and that your family will not exist going forward, that you need to send this show to Jimmy Dore, to Breaking Points, to CNN, to Fox News, to Mediate. You need to make them recognize you or you're going to be invisible driving that Uber. Okay, let's get right to it. Now that I've given my opening salvo, let me get to the rest. Again, support the channel, Tonetalks.net. Support the ADOS Foundation. This triggered this ADOS movement, a push to make the OMB put ADOS on the census. You know what they told you? You don't get no category. MENA does. Why would MENA get a category? American Descendants of Slavery don't. Because you once we make you exist, it's going to show up that y'all don't have nothing. You take them Black immigrants out, you take them biracials out, and you get that ADOS number, you're going to basically find out that ADOS, when you got 4 ADOS grandparents, it's hard as hell to live here. You don't even know right now. We need to know if YouTube targeted Tone Talks and Breaking Brown's channels. The reason why those two channels are important, just those two, is because those two channels were what led to this national discussion, and that isn't me guessing. This is the cover of ABC News. So we went from ABC News to them basically saying, when I say them, the control mechanism, the powers that be, and I believe all the way to the government itself, and I'll tie it for you so you don't have to speculate, think I'm guessing, 310-388-3499, deciding that you would not exist and your politics would not exist because it is too radical to tell you that you poor and you don't have nothing and you might die without nothing. Okay. I'm going to get to it. Uh-huh. YouTube admits the Biden administration pressured them to censor Americans, offers terminated channels opportunities to rejoin the platform. Well, tell them to offer me my 500,000 to 1 million subscribers that I missed out on. You tell them to put the goddamn views back on my shows, because I went from 50,000 when it was starting to from 40,000 to 10, 15, and you telling me that it's not because I told you about coronavirus first, or the wealth first, or me and Yvette told you about this American descendant of slavery first. No one was talking about you. There was no FBA. There was Roland Martin saying you would never get reparations until we made reparations a national discussion, and I put it on that California floor. I testified as the lead expert. I'm not guessing here. Let me show you what, before we get into it, I want to show you the level to which ADOS triggered a national discussion around reparations. Let's get to it.
Senator Harris.
Hey, we did an interview. Come out on it. I guess you're listening. You say that.
Senator Harris.
Oh, good. Okay.
Senator Harris.
All right. This way.
Senator Harris. Hey, Senator Harris.
All right, sir.
Senator Harris. What's your stance on reparations? What's your stance on reparations, Senator Harris? Senator Harris.
We gotta get out of here. We gotta get her out. Sir.
Senator Harris. Somebody here I can talk to?
Absolutely.
Excuse me, sir. Senator Harris. Senator Harris, what about reparations? What about reparations, Senator?
So you have us pressuring a national discussion around reparations. It wasn't just Kamala, it was Bernie, it was Elizabeth Warren, you had us trigger these black folks into saying I exist and demanding at these town halls, you tell me why I don't exist. And we on YouTube. I believe, in my view, that the ADOS movement was targeted. I tie the strings together, and we should be able to make that presumption from what I'm going to tie together all the way to the Harvard paper that came out that said we didn't talk about COVID when I talked about COVID first. And then they had to retract. Harvard don't retract nothing, nearly nothing. And so now here we are in this discussion, and everybody confused and I don't want to talk about this part of it. They just want to talk about the conservatives that got banned. They don't want to talk about the black liberals that got shut down for saying that don't call me black, call me Adolf. I need to be recognized so I can get data on what the cost was of coming from a slave in America. I need everybody to understand that electing Kamala don't do nothing for a slave in America and does not recognize any progress. I need people to understand that electing Barack Obama, a Kenyan and white man who inherited $500,000 from his white grandma while in office, means nothing for the progress of an American descendant of slavery. And that is what gets you banned in America. Google admits to Congress and Biden administration pressed YouTube to censor COVID misinformation. They were calling us specifically at the highest level of America after the New York Times, after ABC News, after CNN. They were calling us misinformation from COVID. And that's what they were banning people for. So how far is it a jump that they didn't fuck up our channels? Google admitted President Joe Biden's administration pressed the tech giant and YouTube to censor content the administration felt was COVID misinformation. Now, YouTube and Google are calling for the conservative voices to rejoin. There's no call to fix our channels, though. And you not even calling for it. I've never said anything about how my channel was being suppressed, but I'm going to say it today. Somebody said silencing Tony and Yvette. No, they silencing all black politics. Now, people might say, are you saying that you guys are black politics? No, I'm saying to you that ADOS black politics, to be specific, was ignited by us talking about the fact that you're ADOS. Nobody was talking about this. Tariq was doing a Haitian documentary before he started watching us. Boyce was over there trying to sell you classes. Come on, man. Do you not remember Darity's tweet that said we triggered the entire discussion? Sandy Darity, the professor that come around and talk about economics, they're supposed to write the book about reparations. He said that we triggered it, myself and Yvette Carnell. We also triggered ADOS. And in doing that, we also, in February of 2019, when nobody said it, when it was the most unpopular thing to say, we're covered by the Inquirer, and the Inquirer has us explain how Kamala is not an American descendant of slavery, so she does not represent this progress that everybody's trying to push. And you had Nicole Hannah-Jones confused. We saying some kind of black or something, she said. No, we are saying to you, whether you're goddamn clear or not, that she's not an American descendant of slavery and comes out of a whole nother conversation. So what we got to do with King and Martin Luther King's steps? But she went to an HBCU. So can a white person. Now, I'm not saying she white as a result, but I'm saying a white person, that don't change that you're not an American descendant of slavery and you don't represent any kind of progress for what they've done to us. It's not whether Kamala Harris is black enough, critics say, but whether her, and then when it says her, policies will support Native Black Americans. We're saying, this is an article that interviewed myself and Yvette. You can go pull it yourself. We're saying there is a difference in the justice demand for people who are descendants of slaves in this country. And talk about how and what it means to get attacked. Controversial group ADOS divides Black Americans and fight for economic equality. ABC News. January 2020. Well, by December of 2020, they were putting out a paper that in addition entirely blocked me from being part of that California reparations. I cannot be part of the California reparations. I cannot be on that panel with that paper. And you remember NARC was using the paper to say that we're disinformation. So then a year later, they retracted, but they've already chosen the panel. You don't remember that? So this was a calculated set of steps. And I believe the YouTube flattening suppression was part of this eating at ADOS black politics. They did this cover story. It got to the point where the arguments that we made that had never really been made were making it into Supreme Court arguments. The Supreme Court was arguing stuff that we had said, let me say it again, in the New York Times article, basically. And they argue that affirmative action, they talk about us, policies originally designed to help the descendants of slavery in America have largely been used to benefit other groups, including immigrants from Africa and Caribbean. In the Caribbean, I should say. And am I wrong? We had that video I showed you run 7 minutes. You can find it online, where ADOS viewers were really viewers of my channel, Tone Talks, and Yvette's channel, Breakingbrown. We're going to Congress members. We're going to presidential candidates. And they were demanding politics to the point where they forced them right after ADOS really ticks off. This is when it went up. And the reason I know this is because the man that created this chart called us, meaning myself and Yvette, on the phone for a discussion with Wall Street Journal. And he was confused until I told him, go make a chart. Go look it up. All of this was triggered by those demands at these town halls about where reparations is at. See me or you gonna see me. From Clyburn to Beto O'Rourke. But they also cannot have you see numbers like this. In the recent show, I showed you guys that white wealth is up 15 trillion in real estate since 2018. It's up 18 trillion in real estate since 2018. It's up 4 trillion in private business since 2018. And just the cash on hand, they have $9 trillion more. They got 24 trillion. The reason why other assets, I know it's there, is because I contacted the Federal Reserve and got information back that they put the bank accounts in the other assets. We in total have 7 trillion and 4 to 5 of it is in the hands of boomers. But in addition, this 9 trillion, if you look, they went down from 810 billion to 709. We went down in cash, I'm sorry, from 810 billion, which is nearly nothing, to 790 billion. They went up 9 trillion in the cash. That's because I believe that this category is the most important in telling you about quality of life. White boomers are liquidating assets. That's why it's a $9 trillion gap from 15 to 24 and handing it to their 40 and 45-year-olds. But what you see is black people don't get nothing. And you wonder why you're driving Uber, because ain't nobody gave you nothing that you need. They can't have me tell you that. So the way that they deal with that is this suppression. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from? I'll come back to the discussion. 1349.
This is JP calling from Kansas City, Missouri.
What up, JP?
Not much, man. I just wanted to check in. I got to clock in here shortly. I appreciate what you're doing, the information and the way that you're presenting it. It's easy to digest, so it shouldn't be hard for people to catch up. In all honesty, I've been watching the growth of the channel. It has been throttled down from where I've seen growth explode. But trust me, they ain't got no choice but to catch up.
Yeah, as long as they take that finger off the button. Go ahead. Any last thing you want to say? I know you gotta get to work.
Yeah. I gotta go and get up out of here, man. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you making the phone call. I know I'm catching people at work because I'm on the West Coast. So I'm seeing that people don't understand that my channel been stuck at 88, 87,000 for years. That Yvette's channel been stuck at 97,000 for years. What I'm arguing is that when I tie this together, there is a presumption that not only were conservative channels throttled, while they didn't ban us, they just throttled our channels. Made sure that it wasn't seen the same way. It wasn't getting the same view count. It wasn't getting shown to at least all of our subscribers, let alone new people. Because they can't have you in this discussion. That is my argument. And the reason I can make that argument is in February of 2020, I do a show before COVID becomes a national discussion. I think it became a national discussion like around late March or something like that, April. Your web, Black Media, covers the show. Coronavirus Explained. Any of them just telling you get a mask, get water. I had thousands of black people tell me that they wouldn't have had water and toilet paper had they not watched my show because it was unheard of what I was saying. Nobody else in America, let alone Black America, was talking about COVID in February 20th, 2020. You can go look it up, the dates. But despite that, in December of 2020, in or around that time, because the paper is published, January of 2021, January 18th to be specific, you have the premier institution in America being pushed by MoveOn, a Democratic org, to put out a paper that we are ADOS movement, and particularly Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell, misinformation. It is created by a misinformation review by the business school. They are banning people for what reason on YouTube? They are banning people for misinformation around COVID. So we got this paper that came out, and it's created by MoveOn. And MoveOn is, and when I say created, they funded 7 or 8 of the whatever 10 or 11 authors. They fully funded them. ADOS network has remained largely silent about the impact of the novel coronavirus. This is published in January of 21. Let's go back and look at dates. I am talking about coronavirus in Black media in February of 2020. So basically, they flat out just lied and misrepresented truths to the point where they had to retract the article. But the damage had already been done because YouTube is suppressing, is banning people for misinformation around what? COVID. I want to talk today. I'm just trying to get to you and get to the discussion. I don't need people telling me about the legalese of things. They did it in a way where they stepped right past damn near the statute of limitations, and that's why it became so difficult. I want to get into that. Please don't be a lawyer. I need you just to stay focused on the fact that they have suppressed. They didn't give us our retraction for a year. This paper was not retracted until the end of 2021. So from January of 2021 to December of 2021, we had a paper out there saying myself and Yvette Carnell were misinformation around COVID, while YouTube is banning people for misinformation on COVID. Okay. And I had talked about COVID in February 2020. You look right here, what does it say? I want you to zoom in. I want everybody to understand. 310-388-3499 if you want to call in. I'm just trying to tell you that there's something else here. Don't nobody want to do no investigative reporting. You need to tell Jimmy Dore, Breaking Points News. You need to tell MSNBC and CNN, get on your goddamn job. Because this is a story if I ain't ever seen a story. Now, they didn't want to touch Karine Jean-Pierre when this came out because she was the active press secretary. But it's time to touch it now and find out what was your involvement, if any. Because it's more than enough to bring about that question, and I'll show you now. So you have MoveOn funding this paper by funding 6 or 7 of the authors, the majority of the authors as I understand it. ADOS rebuttal alleged the article was part of a smear campaign by Progressive Political Action Committee and advocacy group MoveOn. In the chat, I want everybody to remember the words "move on." I want you to see "move on." Please stop talking about legal. I think this I don't need you to do the work of being a lawyer right now, where ain't that you can sue. I need you to understand they stole your politics. I need you to stop trying to do economics or accounting. That's not your job right now. Your job is to understand that they made it so your politics got suppressed. And I don't know if you have the capacity to deal with that, nor understand the consequence of it. We can't get data about you because the OMB said you don't exist. We're not giving you a category. And you didn't do shit about it. All right, so here we are. Let's talk about the discussion going back to MoveOn. I want to talk today because they came out with the article that the suppression happened because of misinformation around COVID, and no one has a better case for being suppressed around COVID than the American Descendant Slavery Movement and ADOS and myself and Yvette personally, because they had a paper where they actually admitted they were targeting us. And the paper wasn't from anybody. It wasn't just like a random paper from one of those small democracy.dow or nothing. No, it was from Harvard. And it was created in large part by MoveOn. And MoveOn, just to be clear, is a large progressive digital first advocacy organization and political action committee in the US, initially founded as a protest against the impeachment proceedings of Bill Clinton in '98, it has since grown into a significant force in American progressive politics. So the MoveOn org focused on the ADOS movement and myself and Yvette and said, y'all gotta go. We gonna make this damn paper up and we gonna get Harvard to put it out. They didn't put it out. They said we can use the Harvard name so nobody, and we gonna get it, act like it got peer reviewed. This was supposed to have been peer reviewed. This line, ADOS Network, has remained largely silent about the impact of the novel coronavirus. When I had talked about it in February 2020, that was published in 2021, was supposed to have been peer reviewed. Anyone who peer reviewed this shouldn't even be able to make any more academic papers. That's how bad that is, let alone the authors themselves. But there's a bigger linchpin that makes this story bigger than life. I don't think that Black America has the capacity to grasp how big this story should be. And how the fact that it isn't a big story means you probably don't exist. Karine Jean-Pierre was the MoveOn spokesperson. There was only one spokesperson, and that was Karine Jean-Pierre. The reason her name matters is because she's the first Black press secretary in American history. How did she become the press secretary? She came from MoveOn, and MoveOn isn't that big. I think they got 30 employees. That's how small it is. When they start the paper, it isn't clear if she's there when they start the paper against the American descendant of slavery movement as the spokesperson. Come on, we're going to get to this truth. We're going to get to this truth. Karine Jean-Pierre was the MoveOn spokesperson before going to the Biden administration and was likely still in that position at MoveOn when MoveOn started the ADOS COVID misinformation paper with Harvard. So the question is, did she okay it? Did Karine Jean-Pierre play a role in okaying a paper that attacked ADOS? And this then becomes the press secretary of America. I'm just trying to draw it out. Don't ask me no questions about suing and nothing else. I'm talking to you about the questions that should be being asked that are larger than life for ADOS, American Descendant Slavery, Black America. The timeline sets her there. Because basically she took a leave, but she was still there. MoveOn said that she will be taking a leave of absence to join the Biden campaign senior leadership. And when you do the dates of when they would have to start this paper, she was likely there. And it's not that big. And then you have the Biden administration suppressing people for misinformation on COVID. And then you have our channels get suppressed. How hard is it to make this shit a story? Make you understand. I want to talk because you go back to Kamala. What's in the background of her interview with Karine Jean-Pierre that triggered a recognition of Karine when she stood up to the man that walked on the stage? What is in the background of the interview? In the chat, do you see the MoveOn in the background of the interview? So the people that are in the background of the interview of Kamala, when the woman that would become the press secretary of America is on stage with another woman that would become the vice president of America, because she wasn't yet. And both of these people are not American descendants of slavery. And we're saying that you need to be an American descendant of slavery to speak for us. And the people who funded this paper in large part are MoveOn. And then YouTube channels got suppressed for misinformation around COVID, and they made up a paper around COVID and misinformation to get ADOS targeted. I want to have the discussion today. I'm just slowing it down. I want to talk about your name and where you're calling from, just so everybody knows.
Oh, everybody knows I'm from Detroit.
All right, Marcus from Detroit. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me tell you something.
about a year and a half ago, I started taking screenshots of your channel because I kept wondering, how is your numbers not moving at all? I mean, it was not moving at all. Something wasn't right about that. And it used to stay frozen. It stayed, there was no way you stayed at, it was like 88,000. I'm like, well, this ain't something, well, this could be right. Something wasn't right with it. But I knew it had to something in the game for your numbers to be frozen like this. Because there was no way. You are our topic, you and Yvette are our topics on other channels. So that alone should have brought more people to you, but yet still your number wasn't growing. So I knew something was up there. I knew the fix was in. That's all I wanted to say.
No, wait. It's not just our movement, our channels blew past the black audience. That's why it was in print. When I say we was on the New York Times, we have no billionaires behind us. We don't receive no checks. That's not how you get to the cover of the Times. We're in an era where the billionaires decide what is the news in large part. We did this from grassroots. So we expanded past the black circle, but they could not have this message, in my view, expand past the black circle. And when I say that, I'm not guessing. I'm saying literally you can see it for yourself. This is the cover page of ABC News. And it's us with Cornell West.
I saw you on, what's that, Al Jazeera doing an interview about ADOS. And I thought after that you was going to take off, but I knew the power to be is going to hold you back because that was too much exposure. That was an international exposure. And, I knew something was in the mix.
Thank you so much for calling, man. Thank you. So that's Mark from Detroit. So, look, they saying that Biden's administration forced them to do some suppression on YouTube around COVID misinformation. Then Harvard, after we do this national push around being ADOS and we talk about this data from the Federal Reserve, puts out a paper that they then have to retract, that they allow MoveOn to fund. And I don't think people understand how inappropriate it is, in my view, but I think from an academic standard, to allow MoveOn even to use Harvard's name to make this paper. I would be hard-pressed to find out how many times has MoveOn published at Harvard. I would not doubt that this was the only time. I'm not sure, but I would not doubt this was the only time. Usually, academic professionals publish at a level like Harvard. Many of these people were not academic professionals. They were MoveOn funded advocates of sorts, I guess. So to allow them then to use the Harvard name to, for a year, misrepresent us as COVID misinformation, allow for the base of a proven source, supposedly, for us to be suppressed by YouTube that was suppressing COVID misinformation, in my view. And it's the presumption that I'm laying out that never was forced to be disproved. In addition, we can move this all the way to the top of America, because the person that moved from Biden's administration came directly from MoveOn in a senior position as the spokesperson for the whole org. And she was, when you line up the timelines, very likely there when they started the paper. I don't think people understand what this all means. Again, look in the background of this interview with then Senator Kamala Harris. Again, both of these women are not American descendants of slavery. What is in that background? It is MoveOn. I'm just having this discussion today because we're not talking about what the impact was of us demanding to recognize that Kamala isn't ADOS and that she got to tell us what she's going to do for ADOS people. We're not trying to hear she on the steps. They got a whole letter that they released, and I'm not going to read all of it. But basically, senior Biden administration officials, including the White House officials, conducted repeated and sustained outreach to Alphabet, which is Google, and pressed the company regarding certain user-generated content related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that did not violate any policies. while the company continued to develop and enforce its policies independently, Biden administration officials continued to press the company to remove non-violative user-generated content. As online platforms, including Alphabet, grappled with these decisions, the administration officials, including President Biden, created a political atmosphere that sought to influence the actions of platforms based on their concerns regarding misinformation. We have a press secretary who was the spokesperson for the org that created a paper that targeted us from Harvard over COVID misinformation. And then our channels just happened to not grow. There is no one more likely to have been targeted by this whole craze than ADOS Black Politics, and in particular, Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? 404.
Yeah, we got JT coming in from Atlanta. I just wanted to address how, I noticed that you guys have been sounding this alarm. It's just interesting that it's come to this time where we see this outrage over Jimmy Fallon and kind of this perceived encroachment of, not perceived, it's actual encroachment of freedom of speech on the right. But I just think it's worth noting that this is a bipartisan issue. And as an American public as a whole, and particularly ADOS, we just have to be really cognizant of the ways in which both sides work together, or maybe not even together, but both work separately and achieve the same goal of disenfranchising us through our voices. And I mean, we see what they do through our votes. So just wanted to kind of touch on that.
I hear you. Thank you so much for calling in. Thank you so much for calling in. In a lot of ways, I don't think people can understand what they see in that background. That MoveOn, that's behind the lady that would become the first black press secretary that isn't ADOS, and the other woman who would become the first black vice president that isn't ADOS, and how what we were talking about is a fundamental problem for both of them, and how what we were targeted over is directly what YouTube was suppressing over. ADOS network has remained largely silent about the impact of the coronavirus. Misinformation review, disinformation creep, ADOS and the weaponization of breaking news. In the paper, my name is there, Yvette's name is there. I cannot become part of the California reparations panel after being the lead expert, one of two, after bringing all the energy to the bill. I cannot become part of that panel because I want to move it past reparations to ask about the California property tax loophole. I want to ask about sports gambling. I want to demand a set of politics that we cannot talk about. Okay. Chess, not checkers. We're going to be truthful today. And so as I look at this discussion, I say, go pull up the letter. It's in the Washington Post article. I posit my position. I lay out my position that I believe that ADOS, that particularly myself, Tonetalks, and Breakingbrown were suppressed around talking about American descendants of slavery and the wealth data that affects those American descendants of slavery in Black America. This is Tonetalks. I'm out.